It's Helen and Hannah, the sports psychologists for Swim England. Hi, my name is Hannah Stoyel, and I'm a sports psychologist for Swim England.
Hello, my name is Helen Davis, and I'm also a sports psychologist for Swim England, and Hannah and I work together, and we've been producing some videos that you may have seen online recently.
Yeah, so today we're going to answer some of your Q&As, and you've all gotten in touch with us through the website swimming.org, and we're going to try to answer those the best you can. If you have additional questions, please keep reaching out on Twitter and keep getting involved. So our first question today is from Madeline, and it says, I have swum races and not done as well as I was hoping. I felt so disappointed afterwards. How do you help swimmers deal with disappointment? So Helen, why don't you start us off with that one?
Okay, well, Madeline, firstly, I'm sorry to hear that you were disappointed with some of your races. Disappointment's hard, right? Particularly when you wanted to do so well, it's very hard when you experience disappointment. I think the first thing I would say to you is it's okay to be disappointed, like give yourself permission to be disappointed and be upset about it. That's absolutely fine. I guess that the next thing really for you to move on to is to try and think, well, how do I manage that disappointment? And what great swimmers are really good at is learning how to manage that disappointment. So here are maybe some tips that I could give you that hopefully might help you with trying to overcome that disappointment. So one of the first things I say is, believe in your plan. You've got a goal to swim faster and do PBs. So when you do get back into the pool, be really focused on your plan to try and get those fast times that you're wanting. Maybe write those goals out. I'm sure you'll share your goals with your coach. Try and think, what do you need to do to swim faster the next time? How can you prepare yourself for doing that? It may be that you have a particular swimming hero, so you might want to model your behavior on your swimming hero. What do they do that you could copy? What attributes do they have to try and help them to swim fast? I'd also say, try and use your support network around you, family, friends, your coaches. Surround yourself with people who can help you and ask them questions to see if they can guide you in that. I think also, don't be afraid to fail. I think you'll find a lot of really successful swimmers talk about their failures as helping them to have become better swimmers in the long run. So if you can take and learn from that disappointment, that's what counts. And also, I guess I'd say, Madeline, just because you have had some races that didn't go so well for you, it doesn't mean to say that the next race is going to be a bad one. See it as temporary. It's not permanent. Your time will come, I'm sure, Madeline.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that I always, for disappointment in my life, or the athletes that I help, I always say, time heals. So if you feel really disappointed after a race, as Helen says, allow that disappointment, feel that, that's okay, but then reflect the next day, the next week on what you did learn. Allow that time to kind of heal your feelings there. And I always say, the smallest but most powerful word in the English language is yet. That little yet. So you haven't managed that PB yet. Give yourself that time, give yourself that space to reflect, to make sure that while you didn't get it this time, you'll get it next time.
Okay, so our next question comes from Georgina. Thanks, Georgina, for your question. The question is, what sort of characteristics should be encouraged during this current period to develop a future talent in aquatic sports? So Hannah's going to answer this one for you.
All right, so thank you, Georgina. Really great question. So to develop ourselves when we don't have access to the water, to the pool right now, there's lots of things that we can be doing. So one of the things is looking online for some resources, such as the videos that we've put out on Twitter and swimming.org. But there's also other resources your clubs might have in terms of how do you, maybe analyzing past races. Maybe you can look into other kind of sports psychology techniques, such as imagery. But really what we want to understand in this time, while we're not our kind of performer selves, we're not out there racing, there's still elements of ourselves as an athlete and as a person that we can develop. And one of the most kind of common things I see when working with swimmers is that when we're standing behind the blocks as that performer on race day, we have that pressure on us. The nerves that take over sometimes come from, and quite often come from, a feeling that if we don't swim well in this one race, that somehow reflects on us as a human being. When we don't swim well, we go, oh gosh, I haven't gone a PB. Maybe that means I'm not a good swimmer and somehow then not a good person because I define myself as a swimmer, and it gets all a bit muddled. And what's really key in this time is separating out that we are a wonderful human being, our person selves. We're wonderful athletes in terms of our attributes, and how we train hard, our work ethic, and also how we are as our performer. And so when we are a performer, that's going to have to wait a little bit longer. But right now we can really focus on, enjoying the journey of land training, enjoying the journey of learning how to analyze races, really creating that kind of person-centric approach by realizing, what about me as a person is great? Am I someone who asks questions and really looks for new things to learn? Am I someone who connects with my teammates during this time and reaches out to my coach? All of these little elements that make us great students of the sport of swimming that actually don't really even involve racing. So we can do that right now. So separating out and building up a resilient person, a resilient athlete, and then that will feed into us as resilient performers. So I hope that makes some sense. Helen, do you have anything you want to add to that one?
Well, I think the other thing I would say is, all those elements that you're talking about is giving yourself credit for those small successes. So it may be that those successes at the moment feel small or tiny compared to when you were out there performing. But that's a characteristic that I think that you can promote now that's helpful, that will help you in the long term, is that a performance is made up of so many different parts. So celebrate each of those parts and recognize that they're helping you along the way.
Absolutely. Okay, so our next question is from Rachel, and it says, as a parent of two young but naturally competitive swimmers, I found it can be sometimes hard to be supportive and encouraging and not inadvertently veer into critical or pushy. Do you have any advice for parents about the best ways to help our children navigate their swimming journey? Such a good question. So Helen, why don't you answer this one first?
Okay, well, thanks, Rachel, for your question. Yeah, I mean, being a swimming parent is tough. I've been one too. And I appreciate it is really different because, as a parent, you really want your child to be successful. You want them to fulfill their potential. And of course, that's absolutely natural in swimming. I guess one thing to think about is that as parents, we're unable to make their success happen by pressuring them, by veering into what you're describing as pushy. So I guess it's focusing on things like the encouragement, focusing on the unconditional support and guidance that you can give them, and the enjoyment and pleasure that they get from swimming. So I guess if you find yourself, even if it's inadvertently going into that mode, to try and rein yourself back and say, let's focus on the enjoyment and what they're getting out of it. I guess another thing is maybe worth mentioning is that it's quite easy, I think, as a swimming parent, to kind of get caught up in the drama of racing and competition, and just to be aware of that those conversations that can happen, in the spectator area about who beats who and what time such and such did, is to actively try and show a positive interest and try and avoid getting wrapped up in those conversations. And then hopefully it may be easier for you to focus on the encouragement and enjoyment factor.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that we talk about a lot is that communication also between parent, coach, and athlete, so making sure that, we know what our swimmers want out of their swimming experience. And then also kind of showing that as a parent, you trust the journey and you trust the coach, because so much of the coach athlete relationship is built on trust. So as a parent, if you say, I'm going to show and say that I trust the journey that this coach is bringing my child on, we're able to really foster that great coach-athlete relationship by just going, I trust the coach. What did your coach say? Let's go with what he or she kind of recommends. And I think always remembering that your child always wants to do their best. Every swimmer wants to go out there and swim at best time every single time. We all want that. And so if you feel that they haven't done their best and it looks like there's some motivation or effort lacking, we need to kind of ask the question is, what obstacles, either physical or emotional, are in the way from them doing their best? Rather than going, why didn't you do your best? Go, ooh, what obstacles might be there for you? And then working with the coach and swimmer to kind of fix any issues that may have arisen.
Okay, so our next question, we've had a question from Rachel in Norwich, we've had a question from Sophie, and actually a number of others, and we've kind of grouped this question together because they're kind of on a similar vein, and it's all about what we're going through at the moment, how people are experiencing different training and it's not the same as swimming, and how it's affecting them, the fact that they're not swimming, and trying to find other sports and things, and how will that affect their swimming. So we kind of thought we'd group those together and give a kind of generic answer for that, which Hannah's going to do for you.
Yeah, so, really being worried about, how am I going to get my swimming fitness back? When will I ever go PBs again? These are worries that are really understandable. And it's okay to be upset, first of all. This is a really complicated time. But what's really important is kind of asking, what can we do in this time? How can we be a student of swimming without physically swimming? And there's lots of ways in terms of using maybe some mental skills from the videos that Helen and I have produced and will produce in the future as well. Learning grounding techniques or imagery, talking to coaches about analyzing, race technique, all sorts of things that you can be working on in that sense. But I think what's really important is right now kind of having a level of self-trust, trusting that when we go back to swimming, we can handle that adversity and that challenge. It will be hard to go back to swimming at first. We'll feel a bit funny in the water. We won't have the same fitness, but that's okay. Giving yourself that patience and that time and that kind of appreciation to enjoy the journey back to swimming fitness. You might take you 6 months to get back to full swimming fitness, but that will be an enjoyable journey because hopefully at this point, we're all kind of missing swimming. You've had this time out for your body to kind of recover a bit. Maybe some of you had sore shoulders before and you don't anymore. But I think as well, realizing that every athlete in every sport, and including swimming, every athlete has faced challenges that have taken them out of the pool. There are many autobiographies that you can read, many kind of swimming journeys that you can follow from some of our favorite elite athletes that have done, illness, injury, anything that's taken them out of the water for long periods of time. They've managed to come back from that. And you can do it too. It doesn't mean they're superhuman. You can come back from time out of the water. It's just about trusting yourself to cope with that when the time comes and taking it one day at a time. We will all get back to fitness. You can do it. Trust yourself.
I think as well, Hannah, that I would add to that in that if we're focusing all the time on what we've lost, the fact that we're not swimming, that actually, is that helpful to you? Is that going to make you feel better? So whilst of course it's upsetting of what we've lost in terms of swimming, but is it advantageous for you to continue to think about that loss? It's kind of feeding your thoughts on loss. So trying to make a shift, trying to use your self-talk effectively and say, well, but what am I doing? And what am I gaining from that? And what enjoyment am I getting from that? Am I setting myself new goals? I think that would be helpful for you as well.
So our final question comes from Kelly, and some of you have asked a similar question. It's a really good one. And the question is, how can we prepare ourselves mentally for when we eventually get back in the pool and accept that most of us will be doing slower times? So Helen, what do you think?
So yeah, great question, Kelly. Thanks for that. I think as a starting point, I'd talk about is managing expectations. And I think for everybody, that's going to be a really important thing. I think trying to avoid having comparisons with before to now, and it's managing those expectations when you go back. So having conversations with your coaches about what are realistic goals for me now that I am back in the water. And again, that word realistic, it goes back to the question we had at the beginning about disappointment. There may be disappointment in those first few swims that you have. So I would certainly say patience is a characteristic that we can all prepare for that moment. About it may take some time. Another thing that's come out of an answer from one of these questions is reward the small successes that you have along the way. So, getting back in and having an expectation that you're going to be the swimmer that you were before having this break is maybe unrealistic. So what is realistic for you? Make those decisions with your coach in partnership with them, and reward yourself along the way so that you feel that you're making progress. And you will get there. It may just take a bit of time. Absolutely. I think, all about enjoying being back when we finally get there. So that's all the time we have today. We're sorry if we didn't get to your questions, but Helen and I are still here to support the whole Swim England family through, hopefully future Q&As and the videos we're going to produce. But please do get in touch via Twitter, via swimming.org. We really want to be there for all of our athletes, our parents and our coaches, so we can develop, each of our swimmers as people, as athletes,
and as performers when we eventually get back into the pool and beyond.
Okay, we hope you found this session useful and the questions that we've answered. Keep the conversation open, keep in touch, and thanks for listening. Goodbye.